At this time, if we can, Michael Shaheen is going to be making a couple of remarks.
This is a real privilege to get up and speak after these wonderful words from Father and from Ted's nephew. I think one of the things that came to mind when I was asked to speak for the Metrolina Phoenician Club was to tell people how direct Ted was in helping us and giving us a focus and giving us direction as to which way we should turn and what our goals should be, and then letting us do what we had to do and monitoring our work as we proceeded. Through some stroke of fate in 1984, I ended up in Charlotte, and I was introduced to this wonderful man, Ted Solomon. And Ted was to me, he was my mentor, he was my business advisor, he was my uncle away from home, and he, above all things, was my very dear friend very quickly. He called me to his office after the first meeting, and he sat me down and told me that there were some things he wanted me to do. They were simple. He wanted introductions. He wanted me to meet dear Sister Michelle, who was his wonderful friend. And he also asked me if I would be willing to meet some other, as he would call them, Syrian Lebanese people. It was always Syrian Lebanese, never Lebanese Syrian, because he thought we could put together a program that would assist people. This was at the time that the Lebanese Civil War was in full tilt, and those of us who came from that heritage were helpless to do anything for the people who were refugees and orphans in the old country. So first Ted introduced me to Sister Michelle Bolus, who was a very wonderful lady and who offered her assistance. Then a few weeks later, he got me together with 3 other gentlemen from Charlotte that were very well known in the business community. One was Ed Tubal, the other was Frank Mack, and the third was a bright young graduate from Sacred Heart, Walid Malouf. Walid was a rising star. He was known all over, not only Charlotte, but his name was getting known nationally, and he eventually worked as a delegate to the UN under the George Bush administration. So he sat us all down and he said, I'd like to see if you could put together a social club, a charitable club, a club that could help people in the Middle East. And he gave us specific direction. He said to us, I want you to do a club that is blind to religious difference. He didn't want us to pay attention to whether someone was Orthodox, Melkite, Maronite, Muslim, Druze, whatever your religious background was. If you were willing to help people in the tragedy that was the Middle East in the 80s, Ted was in favor of it. We asked Ted at the first meeting, would you be president of this club? Because he had all of these contacts throughout the city, and everybody knew Ted Solomon. You couldn't be in the city of Charlotte, do business, and not know Ted. And Ted said no. He said, I will step aside until you can prove that you can accomplish these goals, because prior attempts to do what he wanted to do had failed because of religious differences. And of course, at the time, Ted was always monitoring our work over the course of the next couple of years. The one thing he did do at that meeting was he wrote a check for $500 and he said, use this to help organize the club. And he encouraged all of us to do the same thing. Ted sat back and watched, and he judged, and he said, will they meet the benchmark? Will they do what they said they would do? Will they accomplish what they hadn't been done before? And he set these tasks ahead for us, and after we prepared the Constitution and the bylaws and went through all that work. And we fought to keep the club open for all people. We wanted it to be a chance for people of all religious groups, as long as they cared about refugees and orphans and people in dire circumstances in the middle of a civil war. That was our goal. In the second year, Ted finally joined because he gave us the approval that what we were doing was right, that he wanted us to see whether we could accomplish what the task was. And that's how Reform got started. The club got started. Over the years, that club did some interesting things with less than 100 members. In the course of our first 3 years, we raised over $60,000. Ted put on auctions, we put on dinners, we raised money that went over to St. Vincent's Orphanage, to the Maronite orphanages, and to other charities in the Middle East to help the people there who were truly destitute as a result of the war. Ted, in addition to doing all this, then said to us, we have to broaden the scope of what we're doing. In 1987, with Sister Michelle's help, the MPC, the Metrolina Phoenician Club as it became known, hosted a dinner for Danny Thomas here in Charlotte. And we had the dinner for over 250 people at the Adams Mark Hotel. And Danny came and entertained us wonderfully for a weekend. And to this day, while Sister Michelle asked me to assist in entertaining Danny, the truth was that Danny entertained us 24 hours around the clock. He was there at the hotel, he was there at the dinner, he had the people working at the hotel in his room while he delivered a constant barrage of stand-up comedy. He was a consummate entertainer, all because Ted had got this group together and organized this club to do good social work. In the course of the first 3 years, we put $60,000 away. We put $30,000 the second year for the orphanages. And then as a result of all this work, Waleed in Washington got an invitation for the members of the club and the officers to be included in a meeting with George H.W. Bush. And there we had a chance to meet George Sr., and we had a wonderful luncheon, and he spoke to us about his feelings about the Middle East because he had served time in Lebanon as an ambassador. And in a room of less than 50 people, the name of the club that Ted had formed, that Ted had thought about, became nationally known. Ted's works go far beyond his business career. Ted's works really helped many people see the light in putting their efforts ahead for the benefit of the public at large. And the club still exists today, and we have some of the past presidents here. And that group of 4 people that originally founded it under Ted's tutelage is still in existence and still doing good work. And in my heart, I can only say that without Ted Solomon, my life would have been different. And without Ted Solomon, the members of that club would not today have the opportunity to be friends and to do good things together. And God bless Ted and keep him close to his heart, just as we will in our memories as we go ahead. Thank you.